Children's Church. Miss Terry Ward has been our Children's Church leader this month. So anybody and everybody's welcome to go with them this morning. Continuing, and perhaps even concluding the series on Only God. It's wonderful. We've got a whole row back there. Joanne's family came here, and when I came out and saw that they were here this morning, before the service, it said that she didn't know that they were going to be here. She might have suspected it or maybe even wished for it, but didn't have any idea. You know, it's a wonderful thing. That's why surprises are so wonderful, and that's why they have wanted to show their love and respect for the matriarch and their family, and the boss who tells them what to do and how to do things and how to behave and so forth. And if they're wise, they would listen. That's the way all of us are. We still try to be to help and throw in some of our wisdom there. But you know, if they had all promised that they were going to be here this morning and then didn't show up, you know, she'd been very disappointed, and it would have broken her heart. So that instead of giving her expectations, they just thought, well, let's just surprise her. And so that all worked out very well. Anytime that you and I have expectations of each other, we run the great risk of being disappointed because we let each other down. We're not dependable. We can't help it. There are lots of ways in which we are almost always going to let each other down. A part of loving each other and getting along, or being married, or being a part of a family, you've got to be patient with each other. You've got to be compassionate. You've got to be forgiving. You've got to cut each other a lot of slack. If you have any kind of relationship with anyone where you require them to be a certain way, or to behave in a certain pattern, or to measure up to a certain standard, all you're ever going to do is just be frustrated with that person. You're going to be upset, and there's going to be more tension between you than love or devotion or being happy with each other. The Bible talks entirely with us that one of the disciplines that we need to pursue is to point more and more of our desires, more of our hopes and dreams toward God, pointing all of our expectations from God. Now, even God's not going to do everything you want Him to do. I get frustrated with God. I say, God, how come you don't always do what I want you to do? Well, that's just part of that too. I have to learn how to get along with a God who doesn't do everything that I command that He does. You know what? It works very well the other way, because a long time ago, He decided to love me, even though I don't do everything He tells me to do. Well, you see, I need to learn from that example. So we've been talking about only God. The more and more you and I can learn, now we need to love people and cherish people, and we need to learn how to serve others, how to love God and love others. But more and more, we need to realize that what we need, what we're looking for, what we're chasing after, and what is important in life has to do with God. Now, let's look at the next slide, because we're going on to another phase today. And this is the third in the series. Only God can shake a prison. All right, let's go to the next slide, because you know these guys, don't you? This is one of my favorite stories in the book of Acts. This, to me, it has far more sparks flying from it than even the salvation or the story of the time when Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus. That story is told 3 different times in the book of Acts. But this is the story of Paul and Silas and how they got thrown into prison, actually for just doing what Jesus sent them to do. Now, this is a pretty good representation of probably the way they are, and it looks very contradictory. You said they got the stripes all over their back, and they were beaten, and they stripped all their clothes off of them. They probably didn't have any clothes on at all, but I'm so glad in this picture the artist said, I think I'm going to draw some drawers on them. So that's pretty good. At least I can use this in church. They says they put them in chains and shackles and stocks. And that's what those are that their feet are through. So they had to have their feet through there. They didn't want them getting away. All right, the story of Paul and Silas. Only God can shake a prison. Now, of course, we've had the blessing, and throughout my ministry, I've had the privilege of going to different places where people are locked up, incarcerated, where they're shut in, whether it's for medical reasons, mental or emotional reasons, for criminal reasons. Listen, prison is not a good place to be. But I see people every day who are imprisoned, even though they're not behind bars and they don't have chains on their wrists, their feet are not in stocks, their lives they're tied up, they're tangled up, and their life is one of frustration and discouragement and despair because of the things that have tangled their life that God has not intended for them to. Our life becomes simplified when we let God free us from the things that only He can free us from. All right, let's go on. We're going to get into this passage here. It's in Acts chapter 16, starting with verse 22 and following. Remember that Paul and Silas had been invited by a Macedonian man in a dream or a vision that came to Paul. He said, come help us. Come help us. I heard someone today talking about the late Billy Graham. Said, you know, Billy Graham, he was really criticizing Billy because he didn't do enough for race relations. He didn't do enough to help us become more and more sensitive about the environment, our global warming. That Billy could have done more to help raise the people from out of poverty and help feed them. You know, God didn't hire Billy Graham, didn't save Billy Graham to solve all those problems. When the man from Macedonia said, come help us, well, they probably had all different kinds of social problems. But I'm so glad there's really no telling how many lives have been changed, how many people were saved, and how many people were in heaven to meet Billy Graham when he came through the gate saying, Billy, you told me about Jesus, and that's the reason I'm here. Of all the different things I could say, good or bad, about my life on earth, since I got to heaven, I have had no complaints. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Billy. You know, Billy Graham was never, ever one of my favorite preachers or authors. But every time when I was going, even now, boy, when I'm flipping through the channels on the television, and Billy Graham's up there preaching or teaching, I'll say, get him, Billy! And I don't stay there long, but at least I'm all for him. You know, I want him to, I know he's shelling it down. I know he's doing it right. But once you become a Christian, gospel preaching kind of loses a lot of its appeal to you. When people are telling you how to be saved, so I've already done that, so I want to hear something else. Billy almost always just preached telling people how they could know Jesus. And so once you know that message, you know, I wanted to get people to go hear Billy. And there are a lot of people that I gave Billy's books to who needed Jesus. Well, let's go on. Now, let's look at this passage. Paul and Silas are in Philippi, and they have actually put a fortune teller out of business. And it made her masters angry, and so they stirred up the crowd. The crowd rose up together against Paul and Silas, and the magistrates ripped off their clothes and gave orders for them to be beaten. All right, there's something going on here that I just kind of want to see. That remember back in the first part of Acts chapter 16, it said Paul did this. And then Silas did this. And then Paul and Silas, they did this. They went there. And then all of a sudden it starts saying, we went here, and we went there, and we did this. Because the gospel writer, or the writer of Acts, Luke, obviously, had joined them. You're going to find also in the book of Acts that every time there's a whooping, Luke somehow vanishes. Look, you see that? They rose up together against Paul and Silas and gave orders for them to be beaten. So Luke didn't get beat. I don't know if he was saying, I'll be right back. If he slipped away, or they just didn't think he was important at all. I remember when I was a teenager, I went to spend the evening with one of my friends. He's a little bit older than me. I was going to spend the night at his house. We went down to the corner market, and when we was going to get some candy and everything. We went to get in line there at the checkout counter, and I paid for my candy, and I started headed out to the door and everything like that. Then I heard my friend start screaming like a cow. Whoa! Like that, and I turned around, and the store manager had my friend up on that thing, that the belt that slides, and had him on his belly and was going through his pockets. Evidently, my friend had stolen some things from the shelf and put them in his pocket. And I was scared to death. And there was my friend who, he was screaming, and everybody in the whole store was just shocked. And I was like, oh man, he's killing my friend. And then the manager, he was just kind of a little fella. He was a man, but he was a little bit. He had my friend up there, had his hands behind his back, going through his pockets. He says, get that one. And he pointed at me. And I said, oh. And man, I was gone. I was out there. I disappeared. That's the very first time I ever just completely vanished from sight. And I went out, and I remember I had to go to his house, and fortunately we left the door open and wait for his mom and dad to get home. Well, actually I went down and hid in a phone booth and peeked over the top until the police got there. The police came, picked up my friend, took him to jail. And then I went home, I had to wait there, and his mom would come to the door, and I said, well, guess what? That was a harrowing experience. Well, Luke may have been like that. They may have said, get him! And Luke said, oh man, I'm gone. And he disappeared, he dissolved. But you'll find out that there's a lot of times when old Paul got the stuffings kicked out of him just for doing what God told him to do. And Luke says, well, they did that to them, and then they did that to them, and then I'm thinking, Luke, evidently, maybe he was just an older gentleman, and he just looked like somebody you wouldn't want to beat up on or something. I don't know. But when I get to heaven, I'm going to say, Luke, I don't want to embarrass you or anything like that, but are you just a fast runner, or you just don't look very important? I don't know. Explain that to me. Maybe he's got an answer. And when they laid many stripes on them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them secure. Who, having received such a charge, placed them forcefully into the deepest, darkest cell and fastened their feet in wooden stocks. Well, they beat them, they tore the clothes off and beat them, and then he says, they told the jailer, they said, man, I'm going to let these guys go. He says, all right. So he says, we got a place, you heard about being in a cell. Well, this is solitary confinement. This is down in the bottom of the jail. This is in the basement. We don't usually even keep people there, but we don't want them to get loose. We want them to be secure. Let's look at the next slide. Look at this. At midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises to God, and the prisoners heard them. The prisoners heard them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's shackles fell off. Everyone's shackles. The earth shook. Paul and Silas didn't make the ground shake, but they were the reason that God made the earth shake. All right, let's go on. I want to show you something today. It's very important. Let me ask you a question. How much does it take to rain on your happy? Huh? Look at that girl right there. See that? It's raining. See, how much does it take to rain on your happy? Somebody said about raining on your parade. You just be happy, but all of a sudden happiness can just be gone. It can just take a hangnail, or maybe a tummy ache, or maybe you stub your toe, or you look in your checkbook and there's not quite as much money as you thought was supposed to be there. You know, you can just be going along, bebopping along, and just be happy. And then all of a sudden, how much? Let me ask you another question. This is asking the same question a different way. Let's look at the next slide. How little does it take? How little does it take to rain on your happy? You know, I think that if you're like me, I can be just as happy as a clam. I've heard that all my life. I meet a lot of clams. They don't look particularly happy. I've actually brought some clams up out of the water, looked at them. And maybe what it means is that when you look at a clam, it kind of looks like it's smiling. Rick, you think that's it? It kind of, you got that clam, you say, well, look at that big smile. It's just smiling. That's just a shell, I'm happy as a clam. You can be happy as a clam. And sometimes just the littlest, smallest thing can completely destroy my happiness. It can go away. We'll be talking tonight about the presumption of tomorrow in the book of James. James says our life, James in chapter 4 says our life, verse 17, is just like a vapor, just like steam, just like a mist. He says it appears for a little while and then it's gone. Let me ask you, how little does it take? You're supposed to be a Christian, you're supposed to have something special, unique. You are a child of God. And yet, your life can be miserable. You can be so unhappy. You can be so discontent, so dissatisfied, because things are not the way you wish they were. That's really the nature of happiness. Let's go on. Let's look at the next slide. And here's Paul and Silas. I don't know if they're happy. I don't know if you can be stripped naked and beaten with a whip and put in shackles and stocks and be happy. I don't think the Bible or God wants you to be happy in that situation, are happy about it. Are you happy in prison? No, I don't think I am. I can be happy about a lot of different things in prison, and they probably could have a lot to be happy about. But that's, I'm talking about just being giddily happy and celebrating the fact that well, let's just look at it. Click that button there, Carl. Let's look at something. Let's look at the list. We're going to add it all up. Number one, they were harassed by a fortune teller. She followed them around for days, saying, these men are the men of God, and they've come to tell us the truth of God's salvation. Well, that was just exactly what Paul and Silas wanted to hear. She was bragging about him. She was saying good things. And listen, we learned, and that was a message that I preached a couple of Sundays ago, that sometimes people are telling you just exactly what you want to hear, but they may not be your friend. They may not wish you well. They may not be in favor of you or on your side. Well, she just followed them around for days and days and days and said, these are the men of God, sent from God to tell us the story of salvation. Finally, Paul just turned around and said, well, that's done. All right, harassed by food. Number two, let's click it again. They were falsely accused by merchants. The people who owned that fortune teller slave girl, they lost an entire business. And so they began to tell a bunch of lies about Paul and Silas, and drumming up a bunch of charges and acting like they were really, really bad people. Let's look at number three. They were attacked by an angry mob. Friends, I think it's important to be part of a group. Be a member of your family. Be a member of your church. If there's some civic organization that you find is worthwhile, there's nothing wrong with being a member of that. We almost always, in order to get things done, unless you just feel like that you're the greatest person in the world and you have no faults or flaws, and you feel like that anything and everything that needs to be done around you, you can do it all by yourself, you're going to need other people. And I meet people all the time who kind of act like they never want to be a part of a family, an organization, or even the church. They feel like I don't want to be anybody, I want to be connected to somebody in some way that's going to affect me or have an influence over me or that I'm going to be obligated to. But the nature of commitment, friends, is that you and I make promises to each other and we present each other to each other. If you ever look around and you're part, however, of a mob and you're about to lynch someone or stone somebody, or you're shouting angrily and bitterly and you're filled with hatred, listen, there ain't nothing good that I can think of about a mob. I don't think the Lord Jesus, though he wants to use crowds and multitudes, and perhaps he even has great joy in a small congregation or a large congregation, groups of people, I don't think he can bless a mob. It's never good if you're the object of the ire of a mob. Let's look at number 4. They were severely beaten. Let's look at number 5. They were unjustly imprisoned. 2 more things. Let's click the button once. All of this for serving God. Not because they lied or they stole anything. Not because they actually injured this man or this girl. They actually helped her. They delivered her. They weren't trying to stop them from making money or being successful. But they were just really trying to serve God, and this is what they got in return. Let's look at the next one. All of this for sharing the gospel. Now, somewhere down the line, someone's going to tell you, if you just live right, good things will come your way. If you'll just be a good person, good things will happen to you. Well, sometimes that is true, but a lot of times it's not. Bad things happen to good people too. And we see that Paul and Silas, this is a terrible thing. That prison cell was probably damp and nasty and dark. And not only that, what if it was luxurious and plush? And what if it had a color TV and feather bed? They didn't belong there. It's a prison. All right. Now, let's add all this up. Click it one more time there, Carl. Let's get a line on it, and we're going to do some math. Let's click it. We do need a plus sign there. Let's do that. Now, we're going to add all this up and see what it adds up to. Because when you look at this, things like this, I don't know, I can tell you that nothing this bad or this awful has ever happened to me. That's kind of an extreme. But you and I, each and every one of us, we have unpleasant, difficult things that happen to us. Now, when you add all this up, let's see what this adds up to. Click that button again there. Anger, disappointment, discouragement, despair, depression, defeat, resignation, and surrender. Well, Paul, this is it for me, man. I heard that old John Mark, he bailed out on you early in the last tour. I can't hardly blame him. This is it for me. I'm done. Stick a fork in me. Paul said, you know what? Man, I had a pretty good life, and I was doing pretty. This is not any fun at all. I don't enjoy this. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I thought God would bring us to. It looks like God's forgotten us. It looks like He's abandoned us. And there's a really good possibility God really didn't even know what was going on in our life. Obviously, He's forsaken us. Here we are in prison. And all we were really doing was doing our best to try to serve Him. You see, all of that they suffered, every bit of that, you could say, I get it. It's reasonable to get angry or to be disappointed. Every bit of it is very human, very natural. I can look at that list of stuff and I can say every one of those things, and maybe a dozen more that you can think of, I can say, I get it. I don't blame you at all. You're wore out. You're tired. You're hurting. You're abandoned. Nobody's come to see you. Nobody's come to help you. You don't have a lawyer. You don't have a judge on your side. You don't have an advocate. It looks like God has asked you to do something that He said was a good thing to do, but it didn't turn out good at all. Not a bit of it. Now, all of those things are the kinds of things that I wrestle with. I feel these things. When things do not go or measure up as I thought they would, I feel these things. These plague me. I battle these. I fight them. Do you? When life goes sour, life goes south, or when you're hurting, or when you're sick, or when something is threatening you, or something is taking away all of the happiness from your life, don't you wrestle with these things? But let me tell you something about all of these things. They're very real and very human, and they're very natural, and they're very reasonable. You got to look at that and say, well, that's not unreasonable. Somebody gets beat with a whip and he's mad. Someone gets thrown into prison and they're upset or disappointed. And all, if you add that up, that's what you get. Let me tell you something that you already know about all these things and all the other things that are akin to it. None of these things will ever shake a prison. None of them. They'll never shake your life. They'll never change you for the better. None of these things, no matter how you express them or how they come out of your life, none of these things will ever shake a prison. Not a bit, not a tremor. They'll never cause anything unusual to happen. Now, click it again there, Carter. Prayer and praise at midnight. And it says, at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God. You might have said, later on, Paul and Silas prayed. Or later that night. Or then suddenly, why do you think Luke wrote midnight? Why do you think that? He said midnight. He was at midnight. Do you have any ideas? Yeah, it's dark. That's the darkest time of the night. That's the depth of the night. He was saying, man, it was dark and it was the middle of the night. It was way past bedtime. And they didn't even have a bed. Paul and Silas prayed. I'm going to go out on a limb right here. Think about, what would you have been praying for? I want to tell you something that I believe with all my heart. The Bible doesn't say. I don't think they ever prayed Lord, get me out of this prison. I don't think they ever prayed that time. I don't think they did. That's what you and I pray. Lord, get me out of this prison. Help me, Lord. I need some money. Lord, I'm sick. Make me well. Make me healthy. Lord, I can't find a job. Help me find a job. I don't. That's just almost. I heard somebody one time that they asked to call on somebody to pray in church. He didn't pray much. He stood up and said, Lord, I know we've all been praying and everything for all these things, but to me it just sounds like a lot of whining. Sounds just like a lot of whining. Well, I want to be like Paul and Silas. And at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed. I believe I can tell you what they were praying about. And didn't have anything to do with, Lord, my back hurts. You ever heard that old joke of fellows? There's a fellow years and years and years ago. He was out plowing actually with a set of mules, a pair of mules on the set. I found out this weekend a little Tasmanian devil, a little baby Tasmanian devil is called a Joey. You might be able to use that sometimes in work. A little baby Tasmanian devil is called a Joey. Saw two little Joeys. I don't know what a set of them or a bunch of them is. A pair of mules. The preacher stopped the mules at the end of a row, took out his handkerchief. He wiped his brow and he said, Lord, this ground is so hard. This mule is so stubborn, its sun is so hot, I think I done been called to preach. Yeah, he got a big surprise coming about that too, because preaching, sometimes the ground is hard and the mules are stubborn and the sun is hot too. Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises. I wonder if they sang out of the blue book or the red book. I don't know. It didn't say. It probably sounded like this. Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom, Vahitrav, Vahitrav, Shalom, Shalom. That really gets your foot patting one. I don't know. What did they sing? It didn't say. You know what the next phrase says? Do you remember what the next phrase says? And the prisoners heard them. The prisoners heard them. What if they had been cussing? You think anybody would have heard them? Oh, everybody was cussing. If they'd been fussing, do you think anybody would have heard them? If they'd been crying, you know, that's why you talk to some prisoners sometimes. He says, when you go to bed at night, it always, doesn't matter what, almost every night, he said you could hear somewhere, someone off in a cell or in a bunk somewhere crying. Full-grown men, new prisoners, old prisoners, you can hear them crying. You think if they'd been crying, oh, God, help me, you think anybody would hurt them? Let me tell you what, if you ought to be angry and disappointed and discouraged and filled with despair, and you say, I ain't going to do that. I ain't going to do that. I'm going to pray. I'm going to sing praises to God. Let me tell you what, you know what? The prisoners around you will hear you. They'll hear that. What is that? Oh, man, that doesn't sound like prison music. That don't sound like prison praying. That doesn't sound like prison talk. If it's unusual, if it's strange, if it's out of character, if it's out of place, people say, hey, man, how can something like that be in a place like this? How can something like that? How can it even exist? How can it survive? How did it get in here? Who's doing it? The prisoners, it says, heard them. Click it again there, Carter. You know what that's called right there? You ever seen one of those? That's called a seismograph. That's a seismograph. You know what makes that little wand that draws lines? You know what makes it go back and forth? The shaking of the earth, an earthquake. Listen, folks. It's a part of what we're supposed to be and do, and we have the potential and all the possibility of not only being changed, but for people around us to be changed. Do you know what else Luke says? Luke says, all the doors opened, all the windows opened, and guess what else? All of the chains fell off. All of them, not just Paul and Silas. If you and I will allow our God to actually truly make us free. And listen, Luke's out there somewhere. He can't come and make you free. And that old magistrate or some judge, they can't come in there. They can't make you free. The jailer, he has no intention of making you free. People that you love, you care for, you think your mama's going to come get you, you think your daddy, you think that there's someone. No, it's only God. Only God can help you. Paul and Silas, let me tell you what, Paul and Silas had everything in the whole world that they needed. Everything in the whole world that they needed. And it affected not only them, when they decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to be this way. We're going to pray. Brother Silas, lead us in a word of prayer. Have you ever heard about that old preacher one time? He pointed down. He said, Brother Jones, stand and lead us in a word of criticism. Stand and lead us in a word of criticism. We need a little bit of help. You know, Brother Silas, can you lead us in a word of prayer? And then Silas would say, I think we ought to sing, I'm heavenward bound. Let's sing that. It's all right, man. And you know what it probably sounded like? Like goats. Probably sounded like goats. And, you know, it probably sounded awful. There's nothing in the Bible that gives me any kind of indication to think that Paul and Silas could sing like angels. It probably sounded awful, but it was glorious. Let's go on. Let's go on. Part of this message is to give you an idea that you probably have already heard about. Maybe it's brand new to you. There's a difference between happiness and joy. And what they had was joy. Happiness comes from what happens. Happiness comes from joy, comes from the Lord. You need to memorize part of this verse. It's Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 10. Nehemiah looked out at the people of God and he says, for the joy of the Lord. Do you know the rest of that verse? The joy of the Lord is your strength, he said. The joy of the Lord is your strength. What you need is not to get out of prison. What you need is to be strong enough in the prison for God to be able to shake the whole world around you. Let's go on. In John's Gospel, chapter 16, Jesus was talking to the disciples. Then said some of the disciples among themselves, what is he saying to us? A little while and you'll not see me, and again, a little while and you'll see me. And because I go to the Father. What is he talking about, a little while? We have no idea what he's talking about. If you'll study Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you will find that the disciples were almost always in this kind of fog. We don't understand. They'd come and say, Lord, we don't understand what that parable meant. And one time they said, Lord, why do you talk in parables? They said, Jesus, if you got something to tell us, why don't you just say it plainly? If you have a longing in your heart when it comes time for the preaching, preacher, preach on one of the old stories that I've heard 1,000 times. Preach on a theme or a message. Preach on something in the Bible that we understand. It was always, listen, if you're going to follow Jesus and if you're going to be a disciple of Christ, he's always going to be telling you things you don't understand. He's not going to be telling you over and over and over again all the stuff that you already know. The stuff you feel comfortable with, the stuff that brings comfort to you, and it's like the old story and it makes you feel good because you remember people preaching on that when you was a little boy or a little girl. But every time Jesus opened his mouth, the disciples said, man, this is making my head hurt. We're not educated enough. We're not smart enough. Lord, you're telling us things that are far beyond us. Jesus said, you got to step up for it. You got to reach up for it. You're going to have to climb. He says, I don't want you to feel comfortable. and to feel satisfied with what I'm telling you, you're going to have to dig for it. You're going to have to scratch for it. You're going to have to let your mind expand and your heart grow. I'm not here to tell you stuff you already know. I'm here to just tell you things you've never even thought of. And it's going to be hard to get along with. It's going to be hard. Man, what in the world? We don't, Lord, we have, and it says, now Jesus knew that they wanted to ask him what he meant. Does that mean because Jesus went, woo, and read their mind? No, it's because the disciples were always in the fog. Just like me and you. Listen, when I went to school, I didn't want Miss Ryan to tell me stuff I already knew, or I'd learned at home. Tell me stuff about Spot and Fluffy and Dick and Jane running. And show me how to spell cat and dog, because it's way over my head, but I know I think I'm going to need it sooner or later. All of my teachers and all my coaches always said, here, let me teach you something that you've never seen before. Let me show you something you don't know how to do. Something you don't think you can do. Let me challenge you. Let me push you. Let me pull you. Let me jack you up. Let me get you a little bit higher. I want to be happy with where I am. I want to go other places. He asked him, were you trying to figure out among yourselves what I meant when I said a little while and you'll not see me, or again a little while and you will see me? This is the truth. He says, you're going to weep and lament while the world rejoices. You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will be turned into joy. He said, let me tell you something. I know you don't get it all, but you will eventually. You're going to be sorrowful. Do you think that when the Lord promised to save you, he would say, come on, I'll make you happy. Come on, I'll make you happy. Listen, I love happy. I love being happy. But Jesus didn't say, come on, I'll make you happy. He said, I'll turn your sorrow into something not happy, but joy. He says, let me tell you, here's an example. An expectant mother, when she's in labor, has sorrow because it's time for her to deliver a baby. But as soon as the baby's born, she forgets all about her anguish because a new life has come into the world. It's the most amazing thing, and I've seen it. I was actually privileged to be present for the birth of both of my children. And I remember standing beside Terry's bed going, breathe! And, I was thinking, just giving me something to do. And, and I had bruises all up and down my fingerprints where she would have a contraction. And man, I said, oh boy. And she was in a birthing room, so our parents and other people would come in and say, how you doing? And she would go, ah! And I would say, we're doing great. We're doing fine. I couldn't use that hand. It's all clamped up. Mom, this is easy. I didn't even think it'd be this easy. But we're doing great. But I remember seeing Terry hold Teresa or Jonathan in their arms. Man, it's like they forgot. Man, you're just tearing sheets in two. You just screaming bloody murder. And you're saying, I always tell people, it wasn't my idea. We went natural childbirth. And there never was a time when she said, drugs! I need drugs! But there she held that little baby, and that's what Jesus meant. He said, when a woman, man, she's in labor. That means they call it labor for a reason. And it's hard work, it's anguish. And you get that little baby, it's like, we've always said, ladies, the truth. If men had the babies, how many babies would we have? We either wouldn't have none at all, or we'd only have one. A man, if it just called we're stupid, we'd say, I have a baby, I can do a baby. We do that and say, I ain't never doing that again. I ain't sleeping in the same bed with you no more. No, I'm not even no chance. Women can have all kinds of babies. And Jesus is saying, there's something that God does for mothers. They can say, this is my little baby. It doesn't matter what I had to go through. I got a little baby. You now have sorrow, but I'll see you again, and your heart will rejoice. And no one can take your joy away from you. All right, let's go through these next slides quickly. We're almost done. Let me show you what happens is made from. This is what happens. Not snakes and snails, pup dog tails. What are little boys made of? That's snakes and snails, pup dog tails. Little girls made of sugar and spice and everything nice. Well, what is happiness made from? Let's click that. Let's find out. Sunshine, smooth sailing, success, victory, triumph, deliverance, sensation, satisfaction, laughter, cheer, mirth, pleasure, fun, prosperity, comfort, health, healing, celebration, festivity, delight. Listen, I love all those things. I want them in my life. You know, one of the tenets of U.S. citizenship is that we are promised and we feel that we are guaranteed from being a United States citizen, life, liberty, and what? Pursuit of happiness. Now listen, I love being an American, and that is a great tenet. Please, however, do not pursue, don't chase happiness. If you wake up in the morning and say, I want to make money, that's what I'm pursuing, because money makes me happy. It may not buy me everything, but it buy me a boat. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I want to be satisfied. I want to laugh. I love laughing. I want to be prosperous. I want to celebrate. I want to have good health, and I'll walk to get good health. I'll eat right to get good health. I'll exercise. I'll take vitamins. I'll go see the doctor. If you're pursuing those kinds of things, let me just tell you something. Look at this next slide. What is joy made from? All right, let's look at see the answers on this. This is what Jesus said. Jesus said, this is the starting ingredient. We're going to make a pie or a cake. And okay, click it again there, Carl. Let me show you something. Sorrow. He says, I'm going to take your sorrow. And he didn't say, I'm going to take your sorrow away and give you joy. He said, I'm going to turn your sorrow into joy. You're in prison, you've been beaten, and you're in the stocks. I'm not going to get you out of prison and make everything right. I'm going to turn that situation into a joyous situation. Somebody's having fun somewhere. All right, here we go. Next slide. Sometimes you can be happy. I love being happy. I try to be happy. But you can't count on it. You can't count on being happy. It might rain. You can't depend on it. You can't live your life for it. You might make $1 million and you could lose it all. You can't count on being happy. Sometimes you can be happy. Because happy is so easily rained on. Happy is so easily taken away. Now, next slide. If you find out where you get joy, no one can take it away from you. You can be joyous even in a prison. You see, let me tell you what, there's a little secret. That's kind of in the next sermon. I don't want to steal my thunder. The sermon's already too long. God wanted to save the Philippian jailer. Did you know that? That's what he wants to do. That's what he's doing. That's what he's up to. He wants to save one person. There's one person that needs to get saved. And in this story, the man who's the jailer in that story is going to get saved. Now, he's never going to come out to hear Paul and Silas preach, that jailer. He works 24 hours a day. Nobody is ever going to go knock on his door and visit him. God says, I want to send somebody to that Philippian jailer. And there's only one way to do it. That's what God was doing. He changed a man's life. He changed a man's life. And they had great joy. Let's look at the next slide. We're going on, finishing up. Let me show you this from Hebrews, because I've been thinking about this a lot while the Olympics have been playing anyway, the Winter Olympics. And the writer of Hebrews in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 4 says, we're like someone in the Olympics. And what he says, we're being surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. And he's actually talking about a stadium. And we're athletes. And all the crowd is watching us. So I improvise it. We're just like someone in the Olympics, surrounded by watching spectators. So we have to throw off anything that is weighing us down, any sin that's holding us back, and run with steady strength and endurance the race that we've been asked to run. Looking to Jesus. He's at the finish line. Actually, he's the starter, and, you know, he's the one that waved the green flag to go. He's the one that raised the checkered flag at the end of the race. He's the author and finisher of our faith. Who for the joy. You think Jesus was happy on the cross? You think Jesus was happy when they were scourging him? You think he was happy when he was separated from his family and his friends and his father? Who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, ignored the shame, and is now seated at God's right hand. He ignored the shame. I didn't say anything about this. Shh, don't tell anybody. Jason did a wonderful job last week. But he's the first time a singer I've ever heard, a singer or a preacher talk about Jesus being butt naked on the cross. I've never heard anybody say that before. You got that, didn't you? Butt naked. I would never say that in the pulpit. That's just not right. Jesus was butt naked. He was. He ignored the shame, but is now seated at God's right hand. Think about him. You know who you're thinking about when your happy goes away? I'm thinking about me. I'm not even thinking about you when my happy goes away. I'm thinking about me. He said, think about him. Think about Jesus. He endured a whole crowd of angry people who were against him. If you don't do that, you'll get tired. Think about giving up. Friends, there's Paul and Silas. Who were they thinking about? They were thinking about Jesus. And the last verse is kind of a poke. He's kind of a jab. He says, you've not lost any blood fighting for what's right. He said, you need to toughen up. You need to pull your bricks. You need to get your big girl panties and put them on. You need to, come on, get with it. He says, come on. You're running a race. You're in the Olympics. You've got to endure. You're bearing a cross. Think about him. Come on. Get on with it. Sound like a coach, don't it? All right, let's look at another slide. Finish line. Finish line. I want to do well. I want to finish well. I've been thinking since Wednesday what heaven looked like when Billy Graham walked in through the gates. Come on in, Billy. Man, I hope somebody made a video of that. When Billy got home. There's a story about a missionary many, many years ago. He was sent to Africa. When he was sent to Africa, he took his wife and he had 3 children. Served many years over there, planted churches and shared Christ in a very humble way. He reached a number of people. He helped people in every way that he possibly could in so many different ways. But while he was there in Africa, while he was there on his mission for all of those many years, his wife died and all 3 of his children died at various times. And when he got too sick and worn out, he just couldn't carry on the work anymore. He decided he would just go back to the States again. So he got on the steamship and he came home. And as he came, the ship came into New York Harbor there, and they let down the gangplank. He came down, and there wasn't anybody expecting him. There wasn't anybody there to meet him. He didn't even know if any of his family members or old friends were still alive or where he might be able to find them. He just came back and he had his old cardboard suitcase. Had all the possessions he had brought with him to the United States. And back home, that's all he had with him. He was coming down there and he came down. And he walked down the gangplank all by himself. And he got down, he was going down the wharf just a little ways, and he noticed that on the same ship that he'd been on, there'd been a famous Hollywood movie star. And they came out to the gangplank. Hundreds and hundreds of people came there to applaud them, wanted to get their autograph, take their picture. Flash bulbs were flashing. Confetti was flying. The missionary looked at that kind of wistfully, watching. Didn't say anything, but he watched it for several minutes. His heart was hurting. He said, Lord, of all the things I've done for you, here nobody's even here to meet me. Nobody's even know that I've arrived. The story is told that he heard, perhaps not an audible voice, but a voice speaking to his heart and said, you're not home yet. You're not home yet. I believe, friends, if we'll run the race, if we'll do a good job, I know the Lord saved us. And when I get to heaven, I believe when you get to heaven, when Billy Graham got to heaven, I believe when they pull out all the stops. Jesus himself said, there is rejoicing, joy and rejoicing in heaven for one soul, one sinner that comes home. What a party. That's what a party is. It's not going to be down here. God was doing something. Paul and Silas knew that. There's a lot of things God can do through prisons and fetters that he cannot do through happiness. Don't lose that. Don't lose sight of that. Don't pursue happiness. Pursue only God. Pursue only God. Because only God can shake a prison. And only when we act contrary to our circumstances, or our climate, or our situation, we do perhaps what is unexpected, only then will the prisoners hear us in our world. Can not only shake, but it can shake the lives of others. Let's pray together. Lord Jesus, I don't always know what you're doing. Sometimes I never know what you're doing. But I know that the primary purpose that you saved me is not to pursue or make the most important thing in my life being content or satisfied. Or, Lord, to fill my life with the things that make me happy, the things that I enjoy. Lord Jesus, if there's someone here today who doesn't know you as Lord and Savior, they have no idea what this message is about, and they have never experienced true joy. They need to be free. I pray that they would give their life to you today to begin their journey of joy. Father, nobody can take away my joy. They can steal my happiness with very little difficulty. They can't take my joy. Help me to pray and to sing praises to you. The kind of prayers and the kind of songs that makes the ground shake. If there's someone here today that needs their life to be shaken, they may feel that their whole life is coming unraveled, and yet it is exactly, precisely, intentionally what you want it to be. Because you're doing something that's greater than happy. Help them to understand and give them strength and power to see that you're turning their sorrow and can turn their sorrow into joy. And I pray, Lord Jesus, in your name. Amen.